He says about the position of interviewing for the Minnesota Vikings head coach. Yeah, I explored it. I don't apologize for exploring it, and I don't apologize for wanting to come back and be the head coach of Michigan, of the University of Michigan. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on EA college football, pro football, college football, Madden, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. It won't cost you anything. All it's going to cost you is being up to date on all of those things. Hit the like button as well. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, here we are. We are in the I'm about to enter my championship game, okay? I just need to make sure that my boys in fantasy football, I need to make sure that Jamar Chase has a big game and Joe Burrow doesn't have too big of a game, or at least he throws it to him that whole time. As long as I win, I get $300. It's awesome. If I don't win, I get $150. Pretty cool league there. But anyways, we're not talking about that. We're talking about something else. So Michigan lost to TCU this last weekend. So it was very unfortunate. You know, they were very physical, doing a very, very good job out there. Just had a lot of weird mistakes. You know, the one touchdown that was called back on the 1 yard line, then fumbled the next play, and this and that. There were just so many gaffes in that game that it seems like Michigan should have won handily, but they didn't do it. TCU got into an ugly game, got into a shootout. They ultimately won that game. And in a different way that Ryan Day was asked to be fired because he didn't beat Georgia on a crazy game where the kicker basically shanked it, there's another weird situation going on with this Big Ten powerhouse coach. Let's see it. From Bleacher Report, Jim Harbaugh is expected to leave Michigan for the NFL if he is offered a job, per Bruce Feldman, Nicole Auerbach, and Austin Meek. Austin Meek is the staff writer covering Michigan for The Athletic. So, oh boy. Now, there is something here that it just is absolutely crazy how much these top-flight college positions, you know, for our dear friend, you know, Mr. Nick Saban, I think Nick Saban figured it out. Yes, recruiting's tough. Yes, you got to do this and that. You got to go all over the place. But it's a much more stable position at Alabama than it is coaching in the AF and the NFL. Again, you have to worry about salary cap, and there's lots of things you can't handle there. There's injuries, there's players, there's contracts, there's this and that. There's so many different things. In college, you do have the ability to have a little bit more, actually, I'm not going to lie, a lot more control over your team, what your team can and cannot do, and this and that. In the NFL, those are professionals. They've got families, this and that. They don't want to be hearing it so much. So that was a big issue between Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke when he was at the Niners. Is that what Trent Baalke's, you know, his cojones were bigger than, you know, Jim Harbaugh's, and ultimately he just left because I think that Jim Harbaugh wanted to be the supreme being around there, and he ultimately left that team, and then the Niners had to go through a transition and everything. Niners are in a good spot now. Took them some time to get there, but our dear friend, man, he's gonna leave Michigan. If you really think about this right now, last year 12-2, Big Ten champs, beat Ohio State. This year, 13-1, Big Ten champs, beat Ohio State. Lost in the first round of the CFP. Losing to Georgia last year, you could see that fact, okay, Georgia won the national championship. That makes a little more sense. They just lost to TCU. A lot of people, this is one disrespect on the Big 12. The fact that people, oh, TCU, you should have beat them. You should have beat them, but you didn't. They're a quality team, and you didn't handle business. They won. You didn't. But leaving for the NFL, man, I mean, there's lots of things about it. I mean, first of all, this isn't even the last time this happened in the last year or so. Check this out. If you want to talk about absolute just cojones, check out what Jim Harbaugh says here. Jim Harbaugh breaks silence on interviewing with the Vikings February 17th of 2022. So that's just about 11 months ago. And he basically is pretty crazy to see what he says here. He says about the position of interviewing for the Minnesota Vikings head coach. Yeah, I explored it. I don't apologize for exploring it, and I don't apologize for wanting to come back and be the head coach of Michigan, of the University of Michigan. So basically, he's not denying it. He interviewed. He didn't want it. He came back and he decided to stay there. So he's had interest in the NFL, ultimately chose, and again, it was one of those situations here when we say Harbaugh apparently, although thought it could be head back to the NFL, he ended up interviewing with the Vikings, but ultimately both parties chose not to move forward with the hire. I don't know what that is. Could that be he wants to be GM? Could that be he wants to be this? I really don't understand the ins and outs of that, but it's becoming very, very clear that Jim Harbaugh is becoming the Brett Favre of college football. Here we are on Brett Favre's Wikipedia page, and you see the fact here that in 2006, beginning near the end of 2006, word began to surface that Favre was considering retirement. In fact, playing in Soldier Field against the arch-rival Bears in the season finale, Favre was given a standing ovation in the closing seconds of the Packer victory as a show of respect from Chicago fans for their longtime nemesis. And then moments later, he gave a post-game interview. He gave a tearful interview in an NBC Sports correspondent where he admitted his future was still questionable. And then there was, he retired on March 4th, 2008. On July 2nd, 2008, he said he wanted to come back. On July 11th, he sent a letter. And then on July 29th, he was reinstated to the NFL effective August 4th. And then we see here the fact that after negotiating with Tampa Bay and New York Jets, he was traded to the Jets on August 7th, 2008. And then he comes back on August 18th, 2009. He signs with the Vikings. And then in 2010, he comes back. So basically, it was talked about in 2008. And then it ultimately came back to the point to where 2011 is when he retired. Am I retire? Am I going to retire? Am I not? That was his situation. Harbaugh's not going to retire, but he's like, am I going to the NFL? Am I not? Am I going to the NFL? Am I not? He's been all over the place with that kind of situation. Now, I always want to make sure I look into the ancillary situations here. So if you think about this here, okay, J.J. McCarthy's coming back. The team is super talented. They've got lots of people coming back. They're going to be good next year too, okay? Now, again, next year is the last year before USC and UCLA enter the league. I think they should still be solid there. And again, everybody in the Big Ten East, notably, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, those teams are going to get a break because now they're going to add the Big Ten West teams in there. No offense to, Iowa, no offense to Minnesota, no offense to Illinois, and no offense to Nebraska, but that's a little bit softer of a side than the Big Ten East is right now. So realistically, next year will still be tough. But there's going to be a situation where Michigan's schedule isn't going to be as daunting as you would think it would be in years past. I checked this out, and I see here that Michigan, you see the fact that, Alabama, Georgia, Miami is up here. That's surprising. And then Ohio State's up here pretty good too. But you see the fact that, Michigan typically ranges somewhere in the teens, sometimes top 8, something like that. This year, the 17th, I don't think that's a grounds for him to leave, though. 9 4-stars. I just don't see it there. There's got to be something else from there. And I think ultimately this is the reason why he wants to come back to the NFL. So he's got the differences between pro and college. College, you have to do a lot more work. It's a lot more work to be good at college. You got to recruit. You got to do this. You got to do that. There's a lot of things out there. Now you have a lot of resources out there. And realistically, if you're a good coach and you get into a good spot, it's pretty easy to stay there for a long time. Your tenure in college for a good college coach is a lot longer than tenure in pros for a good pro coach. Because pro coaches, there's this, there's that, there's contracts, there's a lot of things that can kind of limit that. Whereas in college, yes, there's a more churn of your roster, but you also, what did Steve Spurrier say? Steve Spurrier said that Nick Saban, when he was at the Dolphins, got 1 first-round pick every year. When he was at Alabama, he gets 8 first-round picks everywhere because we get to recruit your players as opposed to just free agency or drafting and things like that. So ultimately, winning a national championship would be important for him. I don't think this is like, I think I've reached my limit with Michigan football. No, they blew a lot of chances in that game against TCU. They should be probably playing for the national championship now, but they're not. But I don't see any reason why he can't replicate that year in and year out because of his ability to control the roster with recruiting. But there's something different about that Lombardi Trophy. Look at this thing, dude. Look at how shiny that is. I know it's in a warehouse right now, but I'm telling you, the number 1 trophy and the number 1 level of the number 1 sport in the world. Okay, maybe not, the world with football, with soccer and all that crap. But I'm saying right here, the top vision from it's not to go to the Hall of Fame, it's not this and that. It's to hold that. That is the top vision of every single person who's ever played football, is to hold that trophy. And I think Jim Harbaugh probably still has that, which is the reason why he's probably flirting with the NFL so much, despite the fact he's got such a good spot. He's got such a good spot with Michigan right now. But again, I don't know. People wanted to fire Ryan Day after we're going 45-6 in the last couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh is like, screw it, I got a lot of money. Let's go to the NFL. And interesting to see where he would go in the NFL. So 2023 NFL offseason coaching carousel preview. This was updated a couple weeks ago here, December 23rd, 2022. We see here, so here's the open positions, and we'll kind of go over them and whether or not I think they would be realistic or not. So Carolina Panthers, if you think about the Carolina Panthers, Steve Wilkes has done an admirable job in an interim fashion, but I just don't see how this... I don't see an obvious... I think you would need like a solid quarterback, solid organization, or physical team or something like that for him to go there. I don't see this one happening. Indianapolis Colts, this might happen. Now, they do have a top flight pick. They do have a very, very physical team. Okay, they're in a dome. I don't know if that necessarily helps or hurts his perspective, but I do know that Joel Klatt said this about Jim Harbaugh about wherever he's been as a head coach. He is, wherever he goes, he makes the most physical team within 1 or 2 years. He's the most physical team in his conference division, whatever it is, within a year or two. The Colts, very, very physical out there. Okay, but I can't necessarily see that happening. I do know there's a couple things about this. Whereas the Panthers position, you think about the Saints getting quarterback situations. The Falcons really don't know what's going on there. The Buccaneers Tom Brady's not going to play there forever. So that's not a bad division to go to. The Indianapolis Colts, you're going to have to look. And I'm telling you, this is going to be a little bit crazy here. You're going to have to look at Trevor Lawrence for the next 15 years. It's going to be a little bit difficult there. That is one negative about the Indianapolis Colts. But again, Irsay, Harbaugh, relationship there might be a situation. I know Quentin Nelson, it's weird to build your team around a guard, but he's one of the best out there, very physical, can go fly forward. Jonathan Taylor, running back. This one makes a little bit more sense. Coming down here, there's a couple other ones. Arizona Cardinals, I can't imagine this one realistically. I mean, you never know. I mean, he might be like, I can make it work with Kyler Murray or something like that, but I can't imagine this one right there. The Atlanta Falcons, maybe kind of the same situation as the Panthers, might be a good spot, might not. I just can't really tell. Denver Broncos is interesting. Denver's a very well-run organization, very, very good ownership. People really like Denver. And, the Nathaniel Hackett situation was weird. But you step in there, you got Russell Wilson. You've got a really good offense. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. There's a lot of things to work with in that team. Now, they are missing their first-round pick this year. But that's not a bad option for him to go to. You have Russ for a couple of years and this and that. It would be a pretty good spot there. Houston Texans, I don't know, maybe. Cowboys, no. Cowboys, first of all, if McCarthy leaves, it's going to be Kellen Moore. If it's not Kellen Moore, then I'm going to tell Boise State to bring Kellen Moore in. Chargers, that would be an interesting one. I think they are going to make the playoffs. New England Patriots, I don't think so about that. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think there's too much turmoil there. I think Tampa Bay is going to head themselves for a Rams year next year where they win the championship or they do very well and then it just kind of matriculates down. The Commanders, I don't know if the ownership is smart enough to be able to bring him in and let him do what he wants. I just don't know there. I know Sean Payton is looming over all this stuff, but Jim Harbaugh to the pros. The Colts is interesting, but me being me, dude, why would you leave a really, really good thing at Michigan for the Colts other than the Lombardi Trophy? But again, that Lombardi Trophy is pretty attractive. I just hope we don't do this every single year. Okay, if you're going to leave, leave. If you don't. Michigan, I will say one thing. Harbaugh has showed that Michigan is a good program, dude. I mean, they are, first of all, they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. They are 100% a terrible matchup for Ohio State because especially Ohio State's defense versus Michigan's offense. Michigan is just so damn physical. So there's so many good things about staying at Michigan, but you never know, man. The Lombardi Trophy is real, real shiny. You might want to go for it. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I appreciate it. So for me, guys, I am out.